you remember the first generation Peugeot 3008? It was a blobby, slightly odd looking people carrier with a diesel engine. Second generation came along a little while ago, completely changed that. Ripped up, started again as a family SUV with much sharper styling. It was much nicer to drive, but it was still diesel and petrol powered. Well, skip ahead to 2024, Peugeot's rethought the 3008 again. And now, as well as a petrol hybrid version, you can get this all-electric version. So we're going to spend some time today having a look around, getting to know it. So the first thing about the new e-3008 is that it's quite a bit bigger than the old car, and actually now at about 4.7 metres long it's one of the longest cars in its class. It's perhaps borrowed some more styling from the 408, the slightly raked fastback look rather than a more upright SUV look. But overall it's a really good looking thing. I think they've kept the sharpness of the previous gen, adapted it, made it a bit more streamlined, which obviously helps with the EV version, making it more efficient. And overall, it's a great looking thing. One of the things that Peugeot has made its own trademark in recent years is the claw mark lights. Like a lot of the other models in the range, the new e-3008 has claw mark tail lights and also has claw mark headlights now as well. So we've got the 3 lights in the main unit running into this DRL onto the front bumper. And the front area also has this really nice gradient pattern, just fading from white in towards the centre badge, which predictably hides all the ADAS assistance systems. On the road, the e-3008 feels more or less as you would expect it to. This is a big family car. Its main focus is on space, comfort and refinement. It's not on sporty handling. The steering is actually fairly sharp, feels quite quick thanks to that tiny steering wheel, and you can use the drive mode selector down here to stick it into sport, which does the usual business of adding a little bit more bite to the steering and a little bit sharper throttle response. But to be honest, it's not a car that's going to ask you to drive it sportily, so you're better off just leaving it in normal mode and cruising along. And if you do that, it's really impressive actually. The refinement is excellent. Even up to motorway speeds, it's really, really quiet. And the ride is generally very, very good as well. I'm driving on the usual terrible British B roads, and actually it's really comfortable still. And that's helped by these fancy AGR approved seats, which give you all sorts of support. The 0 to 60 time is nothing to write home about, but it's on a par with everything else in its class really, except silly things like the twin motor Ford Explorer. Like so many cars nowadays, the e-3008 does without many physical controls. You've got a little volume rocker down here, as well as your drive mode selector, and some basic shortcuts for your heated rear window and that sort of function, but everything else is controlled via these touch screens. Now the good news is that the Peugeot system is far, far better than it used to be, and it's actually very sharp and very responsive. If you leave it in Peugeot's mode rather than using Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, you'll also have permanent temperature adjusting sliders on the screen at all times, which it's still not as good as a physical button, but it's better than it used to be. And if you want the full climate control setup, your button down here, your eye toggles, will let you do that. The eye toggles can also be customised, so you can choose your favourite 8 elements to be on that screen, and you can quickly access them and they'll be brought up on the main screen. Some might argue that it's a solution to a problem that shouldn't exist if we just had buttons, but given the added complexity of modern cars, it's actually a fairly elegant solution rather than having everything buried 18 menus deep on a single screen. Now, one area where the e-3008 maybe isn't quite as good as some of its rivals is in terms of rear legroom. Now, admittedly, I am quite tall, so the seat is set about as far back as it will go in its runners. But behind me now, anybody over about 5'4" is probably going to start feeling a bit of a pinch. With an average driver, you'll probably get a bit more space, but even still, rivals like the Ford Explorer or the Renault Scenic could probably offer a bit more legroom in the back. Now, one of my favourite elements of the e-3008 is probably the interior. While everyone else goes for a very standard, symmetrical setup inside, Peugeot has gone completely opposite direction and come up with this asymmetric setup. So while the instruments and everything curve around to me at the driver's seat, you've got what they call the hockey stick, which is this asymmetric centre console sort of wraps around the passenger and contains some of your basic driving functions. The interior as well, really nicely finished. We've got this really nice recycled fabric surface on the dashboard. Possibly my favourite thing of all is this textured curved panel, which actually houses the ambient lighting. You probably can't see it very well just now because it's the middle of the day, but it lights up a really nice blue in normal mode. You switch into sport mode, it goes into sort of vibrant green colour. It's about all that sport mode does, to be perfectly honest. But it looks really good, and it creates a sort of a premium feel and a very different atmosphere from most of its rivals. Elsewhere, seats are approved by the German campaign for healthier backs, which means they are really supportive, really comfortable, and in GT spec they are finished in this rather nice perforated leather. So the 3008 comes with a kick tailgate, which should, work like that. And inside we've got about 558 litres of storage space, which is among the best in the class. Quite a shallow boot, but it's pretty big. And then underneath you've got this storage area for your cables and everything, and hopefully the shelf sits up like that. The only problem is if your boot's full, obviously you're going to struggle to get your cables out.
Overall, the Peugeot 3008 EV blends modern style and the latest tech, making it a great option for families who want a capable electric SUV. Whether it's for daily errands or weekend getaways, this EV delivers in more ways than one.